God's garden, I am God's field, I am God's temple. The life of Jesus lives in me. By that love I live, not a faith of just one moment, but a salvation lived out through my life, planting the seed of your word. I want a life that bears beautiful fruit. I am the righteousness of Christ, my eternal King. This salvation bought with your blood, I will live it out all the way with my life. Lord, receive the glory. Lord, receive the glory. From the day the seed was sown until now, I am growing, not giving up, planting again and again. In due season, I will reap. I am the righteousness of Christ, my eternal King. This salvation born with your blood, I will live it out all the way with my life. Receive the glory. Receive the glory. Lord, you are the keeper of this garden, tending me day by day, until the seed that was planted grows into fruit. Receive the glory with my life. Receive the glory. I will live it out to the very end.
We are God's field. We are God's temple. In the parable of the sower, Jesus says the good soil hears the word, keeps it, and bears fruit with patience. Bearing fruit takes time. It requires endurance. Paul plants the same picture. I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the increase. You are God's field, God's temple. Salvation is the same. The day you pray to receive Christ, A seed was planted in a good soil, but for that seed to bear fruit, it needs time, it needs patience. So today, we must ask ourselves, how am I tending this field right now? Have I clung only to the moment the seed was planted and planted nothing since? Salvation is something that grows day by day with patience in the field God has planted. That if thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus and shalt believe in thine heart that God has raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. In Romans 10:9. In Romans 10, we confess this. If you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. Many people reduce this to nothing more than a verbal confession. They say, I believe in Jesus once, and think that's enough. But when we look at original language, confess here does not simply mean to speak. This word means to agree with that God says about you, to make his truth your own truth, your own direction for life. In other words, confessing with your mouth is a vow to redirect your entire life, not by this world's standard, not by your own standard, but by making Jesus Christ alone your Lord. But here is what we must not miss. Believing with your heart and confessing with your mouth are not the same thing. Let me explain it this way. Picture someone climbing a rock face. There is a difference between standing at the bottom, holding the rope in your hand, saying, this rope will hold me, and actually trusting your full weight to that rope, lifting both feet off the cliff, and hanging in the air. Confessing with your mouth is holding the rope, but believing with your heart is placing your entire weight, your entire life, fully onto that rope. This is what real faith looks like. So today we must be honest with ourselves. Am I still standing on the cliff, rope in hand, feet firmly planted? Have I called Jesus Lord with my mouth, while the weight of my life still rests on myself, on this world's standard? Real faith does not end at the lips. Real faith is lifting your feet. It is placing your full weight on Jesus, dying with him, rising with him, as a new person, following his will day by day, refusing to go back to your old self, choosing to lay down sin. That is the evidence that we truly believe in him. Hello everyone, Agapao Church is an online church, a place where we proclaim the gospel of Jesus Christ and grow together in understanding the depth of his love. You can find more information in the description below. I pray that as you continue with Agapao Church, you will come to know the Lord more and more. I am the vine, you are the branches. He that abide in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit, for without me you can do nothing. In John 15:5. In John 15, Jesus says, I am the vine, you are the branches. Just as a branch cannot bear fruit by itself, unless it remains in the vine, neither can you, unless you remain in me. Notice this. Fruit is not something a branch strains to produce. A branch simply stays attached to the vine. Fruit is what naturally flows out of that connection. And Jesus adds something more here. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, the Father takes away. Every branch that does bear fruit, He prunes, so that it may bear more fruit. Galatians 5 tells us exactly what this fruit looks like: love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, self-control, all of it flowing naturally out of a branch that remains attached to the vine. And we must remember this. Fruit does not appear overnight. Galatians 6 gives us this warning: be not deceived. God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man sow, that shall he also reap. The one who sows to please his flesh will reap corruption from the flesh. The one who sows to please the Spirit will reap eternal life from the Spirit. Sowing to the flesh means living according to your own lust, your own shifting emotions. Sowing to the Spirit means pursuing the fruit of the Spirit and actually living it out. Between sowing and reaping, there must be time. A seed must grow. A branch must spend time attached to the vine. A field must be tended. A temple must be built. That is why Scripture tells us, let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap, if we faint not. So this is what we must conclude today. We are God's field, and at the same time, we are the caretakers who tend that field. We are branches attached to Jesus, the vine, and at the same time, we are people who choose every day to remain in that connection. The day you pray to receive Christ, you were handed to the key to this field. You were first grafted into the vine. But whether you have remained attached to the vine since then, whether you have kept planting since then, that is what proves whether your faith is real. A life that bears fruit is the only evidence that we truly believe in Him. As you sow, so shall you reap. So starting today, remain again, plant again. Believing in Jesus is not a decision made in a single moment. It is the ongoing process of truly becoming someone new in Him. Nowhere in Scripture does it say that a one-time salvation is a permanently guaranteed salvation. In fact, Scripture says the opposite. As we have seen together today, holding firm to the end, bearing fruit with patience, proving it through fruit. This is the salvation Scripture describes. So we must make a distinction, liking Jesus, and truly believing in Him, depending on Him, obeying His word, and living inside the relationship with Him. These are two entirely different things. The first is a feeling. The second is a life. And this is exactly why we, as God's field, must tend to ourselves every single day. Today, I ask this of you: know exactly what Scripture means by salvation. Not a vague feeling, not a salvation that stops at one-time confession, but a salvation that grows every day, obeys every day, and bears fruit every day. So today, we must be honest with ourselves. What am I sowing right now? What am I sowing to the flesh, or am I sowing to the Spirit? Fruit does not appear overnight, but if we do not give up, when the time comes, we will surely reap. Begin again, starting today. Respond with your life to the grace He has already accomplished. That is the only proof that we truly believe in Him. Let's declare this together now. What we learned today. I belong to Jesus. I'm God's field, and I'm God's temple. I was buried with Christ through baptism and through faith in the working of God, who raised Him from the dead. I've been raised with Him. I was dead in my sins, but God made me alive together with Christ and forgave all my sins. The record of death that stood against me has been wiped out, nailed to the cross. I am the righteousness of Jesus Christ. I will do my best to plant seeds and bear fruit in this precious field I have been given. Let's pray. Lord, today we come again to confirm what you have already accomplished on the cross. Thank you for nailing to the cross the record of sin that once bound us and whipping it away completely. But Lord, we confess, we have stayed too long in the day we first received your grace, and we repent of the laziness that kept us from growing further. Forgive our stubbornness, calling you Lord with our mouth, while never fully laying down the weight of our lives. Lord, search my heart today and show it to me. Help us see clearly what we are sowing right now, whether we are sowing to flesh or sowing to your spirit, and keep us from growing weary. Even when the fruit seems slow to come, hold us steady so we do not give up. Lord, let our lives begin again from this moment on. Let us stand with all our devotion, this field, this temple you have given us until the day of our lives when we stand before you with fruit in our hands to glorify you, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. God bless you guys. I will see you next week.